Welcome to Tech Tuesday here on Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Hary Brelsford, and we're going to have some conversation about hacking today. And specifically, Hary, you got a chance to go down to the Blackhat conference, and I'll have you visit a little bit about how that came about to be for you. But before you do all of that, could you explain how the Blackhat conference has its name? Because for those of us who understand this world of tech and computers, black hat hackers are known as the bad guys who are exploiting others for personal financial gain. And then there's the white hat hackers who are the good guys. So explain how they have this black hat name for a good guy conference.
All righty. Well, first of all, good morning or afternoon, wherever you are from Anchorage, Alaska. That's a whole nother story, Kevin. But I did want to greet you. So here's the deal. Blackhat is a 22-year-old conference, and it started at the Rio Hotel off Strip, where we have held some really good SMB Nation fall conferences. Kevin, when you're starting out or you're a small conference, off Strip is far cheaper than on Strip hotel facilities. So I get it. And the Rio's fantastic. So they started there. And it was indeed black hat hackers. So if you want to envision, you're close to Portland, Oregon, if you want to envision those open source purple hair, maybe a few tattoo people, you get the visualization. That right. Was Blackhat. And it's less of that today. So I'm going to get to that. And so initially, law enforcement used to go to Blackhat and arrest hackers. It was a honeypot, and that wasn't the conference. That wasn't the goal of the conference. But I just envision law enforcement, FBI agents with aviator glasses, sunglasses, trying to look inconspicuous in that Portland lookalike crowd, and so that's what it was. And it grew and grew and grew, and it's very technical, which is good. Sometimes we spend too much time talking about money makers and all that, but we are actually in a technical profession. And now, fast forward the movie. It has completely changed. So Blackhat is now, to your point, a lot of white hats, a lot of suit jackets. The big boys are there. And Kevin, law enforcement is now a sponsor. The FBI had a booth, and the FBI is now trying to recruit employees from that community. So they're saying, let's turn this around, right? Let's go hire you, not fire you. Right. Now, that said, Kevin, 20,000 plus attendees, 500 booths. And then here's where the Black Hats really went, is on the last day, the 8th of August, they start a second conference. They have overlap, and it's called DEF CON. And DEF CON brought in, allegedly, I flew out that afternoon, but I saw them lining up, but allegedly another 25,000 people came in for DEF CON. Wow. Some would have left Blackhat, but it clearly pushed overall attendance, let's just say up over 40,000 attendees. So then you went straight into DEF CON, and then DEF CON is where the cool kids play. Okay, so that's Kevin, people in costumes, and what are the Comic Con, where people are superheroes and and all that. So you saw more of that, and you saw less of Wall Street to put to frame it up, because you raise a valid point. Blackhat is actually white hat now, and now you got to go to DEF CON to get the black hats.
Interesting.
So there you go.
Well, when you mentioned encountering FBI there, FBI has actually employed this strategy at a number of different conferences, and it's a very interesting thing to see them recruiting from places like this.
Yeah, exactly. It made sense. They had young people in the booth. Oh, and Kevin, before I get into my two use cases at Blackhat, let me tell you this. Last week I broadcast live from CompTIA ChannelCon, which I like, right? Those are the infrastructure MSPs and partners who are doing the work all day, every day. But that's a fairly mature profession, right? Computer infrastructure is fairly mature, and security will always be hot. And my son, Hary, in the booth at CompTIA ChannelCon noticed it was a demographic in my age range. And then you go to Blackhat, and it was a demographic in his age range and a lot more energy and excitement. No knock against CompTIA. They do what they do very well. Just different, Kevin. Just different.
Yeah. Yes. So he noticed the older crowd and then a younger crowd at the
Yeah.
following. Yeah.
Yeah, he perked up. He perked up at Blackhat, let me tell you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this article that you wrote on Blackhat, the cyber shell game, war, information warfare, and the darkening web on SMB Nation.
Yeah, so Kevin, what I did is because I double dipped, I covered the full CompTIA ChannelCon conference, and then I had a day and a half to cover Blackhat. And again, with 20,000 attendees, 500 vendors, 500 vendors, probably 500 lectures. I had to pick my horse and ride it. So
Mm-hmm.
I went and listened to a very interesting, intellectual Alexander Klimberg out of, I believe, out of Brussels in Europe. So sort of an academic PhD researcher in the security field. He spoke on a topic I could understand. So the cyber shell game, war, information warfare, and
Mm-hmm.
darkening of the web. And what this was, Kevin, was this was more of a tactical speech. It wasn't so much keystrokes, but he walked us through the 6 steps of, in particular, what the Russian GRU espionage unit is doing with cyber hacking was his basic example. And again, it's not just the overexposed 2016 election, because Kevin, the GRU, and I think they're called like Mama Bear and Fuzzy Bear, so they have all these code names inside the unit for some of their spies.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, the bigger story is they've been doing this for decades, and they get up and do it all day, every day, right? So this is way beyond the 16 election.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he was talking about was the 6 steps, which, by the way, if you want to double click down into this, it's a longer lecture than we have time for today. Go to smbnation.com, page 1, and scroll down, and you'll see the reference to this Blackhat cyber shell game article.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, he's talking about regime change. He's talking about influencing public opinion. Which, again, an outcome of that could be the vote you cast inside the voting booth, right? That's a possibility. But bottom line is he goes from steps 1 through 6 about how state-sponsored hacker groups like GRU in Russia, how they kind of line it up. So, number 1, pick your paradigm. Number 2,
Mm-hmm.
pick your cyber attack. Number 3, pick your cyber power operations approach. Number 4, pick your info war. So info war might be, unsavory topics that probably don't want to discuss on a show with women and family and kids. But you get the point. There's a lot of attack vectors. And again, not necessarily politics, but bad personal behavior and, violence and things we don't like.
Exactly.
Number 5, kind of pick your cybergeddon. So that would kind of be, what's the doomsday event? What's the
Mm-hmm.
outcome? And then number 6, pick your response. And again, in this format, I can't go into all this, and not that I'm an expert, but I did write it up on smbnation.com, page 1, with a YouTube video of my new friend Alexander interviewing with me. And Kevin, the bottom line is my time was limited. I went to 1 lecture, so better than high school. I actually went to class.
Right.
And I picked a good one. There were hundreds to pick from. And folks, you just got to do that as a professional. Go to a conference. Go to a lecture that might be outside your comfort zone or expertise. Take notes. That's kind of the point here. And then, Kevin, I talked to a vendor. I always like to talk to a vendor when I go to a conference.
Mm-hmm.
And this was Trustify. So, what Trustify does, and if you have the opportunity to bring, there we go, Trustify. Um, I worked with a gentleman for a number of years in my relationship with Microsoft, Steve Winfield. And Steve Winfield was a director in a program. Kevin, in the old days, we called them system builders. So
Mm-hmm.
people who built white box PCs. So he was over there involved in that. Now, that more or less went away
Mm-hmm.
with the change to cloud and all that. So now he's at Trustify. And what Trustify does, this is very interesting, is if you have ever had the great pleasure of communicating with a doctor or a hospital or some healthcare matter, they use an encrypted email system. So, for example, Virginia Mason can't send you an email directly, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because of HIPAA and all the laws. They will send you an email saying you have to log on to our secure email site to receive an email. Kevin, other people would know this to be true if you've ever bought or sold a home and you start to review closing documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to an encrypted email site to get the documents. What Trustify's value proposition is that they have taken, let's say, 24 steps that you and I, Kevin, could take a long time to recreate and inside Microsoft Office 365. But they say, listen, we have automated these 24 steps to create a secure encrypted email environment for lawyers, doctors, real estate, all that. And even just normal people should be using encrypted email in this day and age, right? We should tighten it up a little bit because it's a little bit loose. And so Trustify is saying, look, we took the 24 steps that Hary and Kevin could take a week to perfect, and then you got to do it at each site. Or you can pay a few dollars a month per mailbox, and we do it automatically for you. So I liken it to they're using automation, and they're essentially selling time,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're making it happen. And again, my good friend Steve Winfield's behind it. They had a robust audience at their booth, and so that's my vendor selection was Trustify. And then what I would tell you is maybe to wrap up on Blackhat, I did a summary video, haven't posted it up yet, but walked the floor and just kind of soaked it in. So you had all the big players there with old-fashioned booths, Kevin, for lack of a better word. You know, there was always the 10 by 10 pop-up I'm used to in my world.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were the 30 by 30 pavilions from the big boys, two-story pavilions, you know, that a construction crew has to build.
Sure.
Sort of like Comdex back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows, the point about that is it just shows the economic health of the technology security space versus other technology fields that just don't have that wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you can always kind of get a sense of how well is the sector doing by how many vendors they have, what's the quality of the booth, do they have one person in the booth or do they have 30? So anyways, a double thumbs up to Blackhat. And folks, if you're at all interested in the security realm, in IT, and I encourage that because someone like my son who's relatively young, he could make an entire career out of this.
No doubt about it. And all the MSPs that I know are saying the exact same thing, that area in IT is just exploding.
Yes, sir. That's all I got
All
from
right, very
Anchorage,
good.
Alaska, and Blackhat.
All right, sounds good. Kevin Hunter here with Hary Brelsford, coming from our Longview studio here, and Hary hailing from us, as he said, from Anchorage, Alaska. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Till next time, take care.